She said, if you really loved me, you'd propose in Paris. So I packed my bags, but the only ticket I bought was for myself. I'm 34, and for a long time I thought love meant giving until there was nothing left. Time, energy, quiet, whatever kept the peace. That's the mindset I had when I met Olivia. She was direct and sure of herself. I like that. I'm steady by nature, and I figured her certainty would pull me forward. In the beginning, it felt like balance. She chose restaurants with confidence. She planned weekends with a quick yes or no. I told myself it was helpful. It started small. She would suggest where we should go on Saturdays. She would suggest what I should wear to her friends' birthdays. She would suggest which friends of mine were good for me. I brushed it off. She's opinionated, I thought. Nothing more. But the suggestions grew teeth. You should get a better car. It reflects on both of us. If you really cared, you'd book a better vacation. Why do you always talk about saving? What's the point if I'm not happy? I could afford nice things, but that wasn't the point. Every gesture turned into a test. Every yes bought one quiet evening. Every no brought a fight. I told myself it was a rough patch. I told myself she'd see the effort. I told myself love was teamwork and seasons change. The truth is simpler. You can't outgive entitlement. One night, I booked us a small place I'd found online. Brick walls, soft lights, a few tables, the kind of spot where people talk and linger. The server brought water, and before we even opened the menu, Olivia exhaled like she'd been let down. This isn't what I had in mind, she said. I told you I wanted something special. That word kept showing up, special. It meant pricey and meant glossy photos, a place that would look good on her feed. I watched her skim the menu with a bored face, already annoyed that the table wasn't marble and the plates weren't oversized. I tried to shift the moment. They have a slow-roasted chicken everyone raves about, I said. Heard the cheesecake is great too. She didn't look up. This is fine for, like, a weekday. Not tonight. The server came back. She ordered fast, clipped. I ordered the chicken. We ate in near silence. She took one picture of her drink, checked it, didn't post it, and set the phone down like the night had failed. I sat there and realized we weren't on a date. We were curating an image that I could never polish enough, and I wasn't her partner. I was her proof, to herself, to her friends, to whoever watched her stories. I felt something go quiet inside me, like a switch flipped. We paid and walked to the car. On the drive home, she gave a short review of the place. Service slow, lighting uneven, not elevated. I nodded, eyes on the road. For the first time, I didn't defend my choice. I didn't explain the charm or the reviews or the reason I picked it. I just drove. Back at her apartment, she stood in the doorway and said, next time, ask me first. I'll send you spots that feel special. Okay, I said, and I meant it in the smallest way. Okay, not okay, I'll keep doing this. Later, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I tried to replay the night in a kinder light, but the same thought kept returning. I was disappearing. Not all at once. Inch by inch. With each sure and whatever you want, I had traded my say for a calm that never lasted. In the morning, she kissed my cheek and asked if I could look at weekend options. Something special, she added with a smile like it was a private joke. Yeah, I said. I'll see. On the train back to my place, the city slid by in gray blocks and bare trees. I counted the number of times in the past month I had said yes when I wanted to say no. I ran out of fingers. I decided to try, one more time, to set a small boundary. Something manageable. Something I could keep. That night, I told her I wanted a quiet Saturday. No reservations. No photos. Just a walk and a movie at home. She paused, like I had answered a question she didn't ask. We'll see, she said. I'll send options. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog, quiet, heavy, and unclear. I was still there, still showing up, still trying. But something in me had shifted. The warmth I used to feel around her had cooled into obligation. And then came the night that sealed everything. We were sitting at her dining table. She had her laptop open, flipping between pictures of rings and travel packages. Her tone was casual, too casual, when she said, I've been thinking. I want a destination engagement. Paris. And I want a ring that actually looks like you care. If you can't do that, maybe we should rethink things. I looked at her, then down at the glass in my hand. I didn't argue. Staring at the table, wondering when love became a checklist. That night, something inside me finally went still. I didn't shout, didn't plead, didn't promise her anything. I just nodded. She took it as agreement, but it wasn't. It was surrender, not to her, but to the truth. Over the next few days, I began to pull back. Not in anger, not as payback, just because I was tired. Tired of explaining, tired of proving, tired of performing a version of love that was never enough. She noticed. You're being distant, she said one night. Are you even trying anymore? I almost laughed. Trying? I'd been trying for years. trying to be impressive, trying to be enough, trying to turn affection into acceptance. But when someone sees love as a transaction, your effort becomes currency, not connection. Still, I kept things calm. I showed up when I could. I answered when she called. But I stopped chasing validation. The silence between us grew louder, not the angry kind, but the kind that follows when one person's done pretending. Then came the final straw. It was a Saturday. I had a work meeting that ran late. She'd asked me earlier in the week to confirm a reservation at a rooftop bar she wanted to try. I forgot. By the time I got home, she was pacing the living room, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Do you ever listen?" she snapped. "You never prioritize me. You're so average. Maybe you don't deserve someone like me." The words didn't sting. Not anymore. I just stood there, watching her anger spin, and felt an odd sense of clarity. I waited for her to finish, then said quietly, "You're right. You deserve more. And I'm finally ready to give it to you." She blinked, caught off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. I turned, walked into the bedroom, and pulled out my duffel bag. She followed me, still trying to read my face. "Wait, are you serious? You're just leaving?" I folded my clothes, calm and steady. "You said you wanted everything your way. So now, you'll have it, without me." For the first time in a long time, I didn't rush to fix the moment. I didn't soften my words or explain my reasons. I zipped the bag, set it down, and looked at her one last time. She stared at me, expecting me to flinch, to hesitate, but I didn't. I placed a small note on the kitchen counter. Just one sentence. "You wanted everything your way. Now you have it." When I closed the door behind me, the air outside felt sharp and clean, like stepping into a new season. I walked down the steps, bag over my shoulder, heart beating slow and steady. No more transactions. No more bargains disguised as love. That night, I checked into a small motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, staring at the blank wall in front of me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel anxious about what came next. I didn't feel guilty, just still. I fell asleep that night without a single message sent, without wondering how to make her happy, without questioning my worth. That night in the motel, I slept deeper than I had in years. No silent checklist of things I needed to fix before morning. Just quiet. When I woke, the sun was spilling through thin curtains, soft and pale. I sat there for a minute, listening to nothing. It felt strange, not exciting, not sad, just peaceful. Like I'd been holding my breath for too long and finally let it out. I didn't check my phone. Not once. I knew what would be waiting if I did. Missed calls. Texts that started sweet and ended sharp. I'd seen the cycle too many times. So I left it face down on the nightstand. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't reacting to her emotions. I wasn't calculating what to say next. I just existed, quietly, simply, on my own terms. And for a while, that emptiness was heavy. You don't walk away from years of effort without feeling the void it leaves. I'd built my days around trying to please, trying to calm, trying to fix. Without that, my hands felt still, my thoughts quiet. But slowly, the silence turned from weight to warmth. I started running again, something I used to do every morning before we became her schedule. I called friends I hadn't seen in months. We grabbed lunch, no dress codes or pressure, just laughs about nothing. Weekends became mine again. I'd grab a coffee, sit at the park, and just watch people pass by. No demand to make it special. Each day, the fog lifted a little. I began noticing how much space her expectations had taken, how small I'd made myself just to avoid conflict. It hit me that peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of balance. And I hadn't had that in a long, long time. A few weeks later, I caught up with an old friend for dinner. He looked at me mid-meal and said, "You look different. Lighter. I feel it." He asked if Olivia had reached out. I shrugged. "Probably. I haven't checked." He raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm done living in reaction to someone else's mood." It was true. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired, and finally ready to rest. That night, when I finally did glance at my phone, the screen lit up with a string of unread messages. I didn't open them. I just stared for a second and put the phone back down. Not out of bitterness, but because I knew nothing she could say would undo what I'd already learned. You can't fix a love built on conditions. You can only leave it behind. A few more weeks passed. My days found rhythm again. Mornings with coffee and music. Evenings with books or calls to family. I didn't fill the silence. I let it teach me. Then one afternoon, while I was cleaning up, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a different name, a friend from college. "Hey man, haven't talked in a while. Just wanted to say proud of you. Heard you've been focusing on yourself. Keep going." I smiled at the message. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just simple kindness, something I'd almost forgotten could exist without an agenda. And that's when I realized Healing doesn't happen in big moments. It happens quietly, in all the spaces you once filled with someone else's needs. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to say, "I'm proud of you." I was proud of myself, for walking away, for choosing peace, for learning that love without respect isn't love at all. Then one evening, weeks later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was her name on the screen. A simple message. "Hey, can we talk?" No apology, just another request, on her terms. I read it twice, stared for a moment, then locked the screen. I wasn't angry. I wasn't curious. I was just done. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that message. "Can we talk?" It was short, polite, and empty, like someone knocking on a door they used to walk through without asking. There was no apology, no acknowledgement, no sign she'd actually changed. Just another invitation on her terms. A few months ago, I would have replied right away, trying to make peace, trying to understand, trying to salvage what was already gone. But this time I didn't. I just set the phone down and exhaled. There was no anger, just calm. Because I finally understood something. Not every door needs reopening, and not every silence is meant to be filled. Karma doesn't always crash in with noise. Sometimes it arrives quietly, when people realize their control doesn't work anymore. So I left the message unanswered. And life went on. Days turned into weeks, and soon, I started hearing small things from mutual friends. "She's been losing clients." One mentioned over coffee. "Apparently, people say she's hard to work with." Another said she'd been distant at gatherings, less confident, more unsure. The friends she once kept around for status had slowly drifted away. I didn't feel joy hearing that. It wasn't about payback. It was just reality. When everything you do is about control and image, life eventually stops playing along. A couple of months later, I ran into her unexpectedly at a cafe downtown. It took me a second to recognize her. The sharp confidence she used to wear like armor had softened. Her posture was smaller, her eyes tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. She noticed me first. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey," I replied, calm and steady. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. It wasn't awkward, just unfamiliar, standing in front of someone you once knew deeply but didn't recognize anymore. "How've you been?" she asked finally. "Good," I said honestly. "You?" She hesitated, trying to figure things out. I nodded. "That's a good place to start." We stood there for a few quiet seconds, just two people acknowledging the truth, that sometimes love breaks not from hate, but from imbalance. Then I smiled, wished her well, and walked away. No dramatic exits, just peace. That moment stayed with me, not because it was emotional, but because it wasn't. There was no tension left, no unfinished argument. Just understanding. The kind that comes when you've both outgrown the version of yourselves that couldn't make it work. After that, I didn't hear much about her again. Maybe she moved, maybe she changed, maybe she's still figuring things out. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Because closure didn't come from her. It came from choosing myself. See, when you spend years saying yes, just to avoid conflict, you forget what it feels like to choose for yourself. You forget that love isn't proven by how much you endure. It's shown by how balanced it feels. I'd spent so long twisting myself into the shape of her expectations that I'd forgotten what my own life looked like. Now, I was rebuilding, piece by piece, quietly. I started setting small boundaries, not walls, just enough to protect my peace. I learned to say no, not as rejection, but as self-respect. I surrounded myself with people who didn't keep score, who asked how I was, not what I could do for them. My days got simpler. Mornings with coffee, evenings with a walk. Nothing flashy, nothing special, just real. And in that simplicity, I found something I'd missed for years, contentment. It wasn't about being alone. It was about being free from demands, from approval, from performing a version of love that never saw me. Life moved on, quietly and steadily. I didn't rush into anything new. I didn't chase the kind of spark that burns fast and leaves ashes behind. I just lived, simple mornings, honest work, small joys. Each week felt lighter than the last. The noise that used to fill every corner of my mind was gone. In its place was calm, not the fragile kind that depends on keeping someone else happy, but the kind that comes from finally choosing yourself. About a year later, I was invited to speak at a small community event. Nothing big, just a local gathering about healthy relationships and boundaries. I said yes, not to impress anyone, but because I'd lived the lesson. After I finished, people came up to talk, to share small pieces of their own stories. One woman waited until the crowd thinned. She looked gentle, steady eyes, calm voice. "Your story reminded me that love isn't about proving anything," she said. "It's about understanding. Thank you for sharing." We stood there and talked for a while. Nothing dramatic, no instant connection or big gestures. Just conversation. Easy, honest. There was no rush to impress. No unspoken test to pass. It was the kind of talk that felt like a breath, not a performance. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't need fireworks anymore. I wasn't looking for the high of being chosen or the fear of being left. I just wanted warmth. That's how I knew I'd healed. Later that night, walking home under the streetlights, I thought about Olivia, not with anger or sadness, but gratitude. She taught me something painful but true. Love built on conditions always comes with a bill. And if you keep paying, you forget your own worth. Karma hadn't punished her. It didn't need to. Life simply stopped rewarding her selfishness. The friends who once stayed quiet had stepped back. The clients who once tolerated her demands had found other options. The world didn't revolve around her anymore, and she was left to face herself, just as I once had. That's the quiet part of karma people don't see. It's not about revenge or ruin. It's about balance. Because while her circle got smaller, mine got stronger. I filled it with people who listened, laughed, and asked questions that started with "How are you?" instead of "What can you do?" The more I said no to the wrong things, the clearer my yes became. Yes to peace. Yes to authenticity. Yes to a life that didn't require proving my value. I learned that you don't need to shout your boundaries or justify your choices. You just need to live them. And slowly, life became simple again. Steady mornings, slow weekends, good people. Looking back, I see it clearly now. Every demand I met only taught her I'd meet the next. Every compromise I made only proved how far I'd bend. But the moment I stopped paying, stopped trading my peace for temporary calm, everything changed. The price wasn't money. It was myself. And I'd spent enough. Now, I don't measure love by grand gestures or gifts. I measure it by presence, by effort, by kindness that doesn't ask for proof. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her back. I just wish her growth. The kind that comes when the world stops clapping and you have to find your rhythm alone. Because in the end, the most powerful justice isn't watching someone fall. It's realizing you've already risen. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.